August 14, 1995, St. Jude Children's Research Hospital in Memphis receives a standard number 10 business envelope. No return address. Inside is a single McDonald's Monopoly game piece, Boardwalk. The odds of finding it are 1 in 250 million. The prize is $1 million. The hospital is ecstatic. The news cameras are already on their way. But inside McDonald's headquarters, no one is celebrating, because according to the master security logs, this ticket wasn't supposed to be in Memphis. It wasn't even supposed to be in Tennessee. High-value piece number 1540 was logged into a random shipment of fry boxes headed to a franchise in New Hampshire. It never arrived. While the public celebrates the miracle in Memphis, McDonald's launches a quiet internal audit to find the missing shipment. The audit team reveals a pattern that should not exist. What they uncover isn't a mistake, it's a statistical impossibility. For over a decade, the rarest prizes in the game weren't being found by chance. They were being distributed, and at the center of it all was the one man McDonald's trusted to keep the game fair. Jerome Jacobson wasn't a hacker. He was an ex-cop from Florida with a meticulous obsession with protocol. As the director of security for Simon Marketing, he was the only human being authorized to transport the golden envelopes from the secret printing facility to the distribution centers. The security was designed to be ironclad. Jerome was never alone. He was shadowed by an independent auditor, a watchman whose only job was to ensure Jerome never touched the winning pieces. They were booked on the same flights, stayed in the same hotels, and shared the same meals. They were tethered by a zero-trust policy. But for 3 years, Jerome quietly studied his shadow. He discovered that even the most disciplined security professionals are bound by a singular vulnerability, the human gap. He noticed that auditors, no matter how well they are trained, they are bound by biological needs. The heist didn't start at an airport, it started in a supply room. Jerome quietly requisitioned a surplus of the silver holographic security seals, the exact ones which were used to seal the winning envelopes. He claimed he needed them for random stress tests and quality control. In reality, he now possessed the one thing a thief never has: the ability to lock a door he just broke. He spent weeks in his home office practicing. He discovered that a specific type of stainless steel surgical scissors could slide under the side seam of the envelope, bypassing the fracture points of the seal entirely. All he needed was a window of time. In 1989, during a routine layover at Dulles International, the window opened. The auditor is exhausted from a 6-hour flight. Jerome mentions he needs a moment of privacy and takes the briefcase that contains the $1 million Boardwalk piece. He takes it to the only place the auditor cannot follow, the handicap stall of an airport restroom. He has exactly 3 minutes before his absence becomes suspicious. Jerome reaches into his vest and pulls out the requisitioned seals and his surgical scissors. He doesn't tear the envelope. He performs surgery. He snips a micro slit along the side, slides the $1 million Boardwalk sticker out, and replaces it with a common property, Mediterranean Avenue. He peels a fresh, authentic seal from his stash and applies it. To an outside observer, the envelope is untouched. The void pattern has not been triggered. The briefcase is technically secure, but the $1 million piece is now taped to the inside of Jerome's thigh. He didn't just do this once, he had perfected a system that allowed him to treat the world's largest restaurant chain like this for 12 years. By 1995, Jerome Jacobson was sitting on a fortune he couldn't touch. He possessed millions of dollars in Boardwalk and Park Place game pieces, but in the world of high-stakes fraud, inventory is a liability. If he cashed a ticket, he'd be flagged by his own security system. If he gave them to his family, the paper trail would lead back to his desk at Simon Marketing. Jerome didn't just need winners, he needed fronts. He needed people who looked like everyday customers but had zero connection to his personal life. He needed a recruiter. In a dimly lit Pizza Hut in Atlanta, Jerome meets Gennaro Jerry Colombo. The optics are a paradox. A quiet director of security sitting across from a high-ranking member of the Colombo crime family. Jerome slides a $1 million sticker across the table. He isn't selling a game piece, he's pitching a business model. Colombo doesn't care about the odds of the game, he cares about the equity of the split. The business model is cold and mathematical. Jacobson provides the inventory. The mob provides the fronts. The prize money is split into 3 silos: 20% for the winner to buy their silence, 40% for the mafia's recruitment costs, and 40% kicked back to Jacobson in vacuum-sealed bundles of $20 bills. Colombo begins harvesting winners. He looks for people in debt, small business owners on the verge of bankruptcy, and associates who can stick to a script. But Jerome enforces a strict operational protocol to keep the FBI at bay. He calls it the geography rule. To an auditor at McDonald's headquarters, the wins have to look random. Jerome dictates that no two winners can live within 500 miles of each other in the same year. No winners can share a surname. No winners can have attended the same school. Jerome tracks the distribution on a private master ledger in his home. He is essentially playing a 12-year game of chess against his own security team. If a winner in Florida claims a $1 million prize in June, Jerome waits 6 months before releasing the next piece to a recruit in New Hampshire. The winners are briefed on their backstory, where they bought the fries, what time of day it was, even the weather during the lucky moment. By the late 90s, Jerome Jacobson has become a ghost architect. He spends his days at Simon Marketing, attending high-level security briefings about preventing fraud, while his nights are spent collecting suitcases of cash in suburban parking lots. But in the world of distributed fraud, you're only as safe as your weakest link. And Jerome was about to find out that when you recruit 50 people into a conspiracy, you aren't building a team. You're building a timeline for your own arrest. In 2000, a single anonymous tip reached the FBI office in Jacksonville, Florida. It was a one-sentence accusation. A man named Uncle Jerry is rigging the McDonald's Monopoly game. Special Agent Richard Dent launched Operation Final Answer. He didn't start with arrests, he started with the data. He cross-referenced every major winner from the last decade against criminal databases, social security numbers, and phone records. The FBI realized they were looking at a zero-trust system that had been completely compromised from the inside. But they had a procedural problem. To convict Jerome Jacobson, they didn't just need the tickets, they needed the confessions. They needed to catch the winners in the act of lying about where their luck came from. The FBI launched the most elaborate, undercover production in the Bureau's history. They created a shell company called Shamrock Productions. They contacted the most recent winners and told them they had been selected for a 10th anniversary promotional documentary. The prize? A chance to be the face of McDonald's Monopoly in a national Super Bowl commercial. The winners, blinded by the prospect of fame, agreed to be interviewed. One by one, they sat in the hot seat, bathed in 1,000-watt studio lights. For hours, they told elaborate, scripted lies about the moment of discovery. They described buying the specific order of fries at a specific drive-thru. They described the shock of peeling the sticker. They even described the prayers they said after winning. Behind the cameras, the director and cameraman were actually special agents. They weren't checking the lighting, they were checking the federal rules of evidence. Every stutter, every glance away from the lens, and every rehearsed lie was being recorded onto broadcast-quality film for a future jury. September 10th, 2001, 9 a.m. Jerome Jacobson enters the federal courthouse in Jacksonville, Florida. He is 58 years old, facing 127 years in federal prison. The prosecution has prepared a mountain of forensic evidence: the suitcases of cash, the surgical scissors, and the 35mm confessions of the Shamrock Sting. It is the biggest fraud trial in American history. But at 8:46 a.m. the following morning, the world's attention is forcibly moved 900 miles north to Lower Manhattan. The news cycle is obliterated. The cameras that were supposed to broadcast the Monopoly verdict are redirected to the ruins of the World Trade Center. The trial of the century becomes a whisper in a ghost town. Jerome Jacobson, the man who held the Golden Arches hostage for 12 years, is sentenced in the shadows. He receives just 37 months in federal prison and is ordered to pay $12.5 million in restitution. By the time he is released in 2005, the world has largely forgotten that the most famous game in history was ever rigged. October 2025. McDonald's officially relaunched its first major Monopoly run in years, but the game Jerome Jacobson broke no longer exists. The human gap has been sealed with code. There are no more number 10 business envelopes. There are no more silver holographic seals. Every peel is now a digital transaction, tracked by IP addresses, GPS coordinates, and two-factor authentication. McDonald's learned a $24 million lesson. The game wasn't broken by technology, it was broken by trust.